Recalling of information helps us live a happier life. By being able to remember things, we can be more productive and we can be less frustrated. In my classes, I teach something called memory pegs, which is how to memorize lists of items. And you can think of a memory peg as similar to like a rack that you put on a wall that has a bunch of pegs on it. And one day on the first peg you put a hat, and then tomorrow you put a scarf, and tomorrow and the next day you put a coat, for example. This is the same way memory pegs work. Each number is associated with a word, that when we want to remember something, what we can do is we can take the thing we want to remember and make a funny association with the number and with the item or the word that's the memory peg. And then when we want to remember it, all we need to do is say number one, remember what the memory peg is, and then remember what the item is associated with the memory peg. It ends up being very easy. I have a friend that's really into this, and what he does sometimes is he'll go into a bar with his friends, and he'll say, "Okay, you give me 50 items to remember, and everyone I'll repeat them back to you in order, and everyone I get wrong, I'll give you $5, and everyone I get right, you give me $1." Well, needless to say, he never leaves the bar without the $50, and everyone's always like super impressed. And when you do this, you can also play games. You can say, okay, I'm going to tell you the items from the beginning to the end, and I'm going to repeat all the evens backwards or all the odds forwards or what any direction you want. Or you can call out a number, and I'll tell you what the item is. I have another friend of mine. I taught this to, and he teaches high school economics, and he uses this in the beginning of the class to get all the kids' attention. And he says, okay, we're going to put 20 items on the board, and I'll remember them back. And he plays a game with them. And then after he dazzles them and does this thing back and forth, then he teaches them how to do it. And so he ends up teaching them a life skill for it. And you can do the same thing like at a holiday gathering, especially if you have little kids around. You can say, okay, let's play a game. I'm going to show you how good my memory is. You give me 10 items to remember, and I'll remember them in order. And if I get something wrong, then we can, play a game or whatever about it. And then you go through, you get the 10 items, you have someone write them down, and then you go back and you say the 10 items in order, and then you can repeat them backwards. You can call out a number, tell you what the item is, or just give all the evens and then all the odds or whatever it is. So it ends up being a fun way to pass some time. And then you teach the kids, and then after you show them how good your memory is, then you can teach them the memory peg system, for 10 items. And then you're giving them a life skill that they can use when, in school or anywhere else that they need to know, and when they need to remember a list of things. So if you want to get your memory better, just memorize 100 memory pegs, use them a couple of times, and go through the whole 100 items, and your memory in general will get better. And then not only that, but you can use it over and over again for lots of different situations. Another person I know, she had a stroke, and her memory was affected, and she used the memory pegs every day. She'd work on them, and she memorized a list of 100 memory pegs, and she'd work on them. She'd start remembering stuff. After a while, her memory became better than it was before she had the stroke. So there's lots of things you can do with the memory pegs. There's other techniques to remember people's names, for example. There's a person I know, let's call her Susie. She worked at a hat check stand or in a restaurant where they, you go when you're checking your hat and your jacket and briefcase or whatever else you want to leave. So she would use this, remember all the customers' names, remember what the items are that they gave her. And not only that, but the next time they came in, she'd greet them by name, and then she'd take their hat or their coat or whatever and put it aside. And she never gave them a ticket to claim, a claim ticket for their coats, but she knew who it was when they came up to them. And needless to say, she got a lot of tips as a result of that because it was a very customized service. And the people were always very impressed with that. So memory pegs is just one of the techniques that we use to help improve memory. And if you're interested, join one of my classes and learn how to supercharge your mind.